legroom may feel like it's getting smaller and smaller, but passenger planes are getting bigger and bigger. Airbus, Boeing, and other aviation companies are building aircraft larger than ever before. So, with today's video, we're going to be taking a look at 15 of the biggest passenger planes in the world. Number 15. Airbus A340300. Alright, kicking off this list of the world's biggest passenger planes is the Airbus A340300. This wide-body plane first took to the skies on November 2, 1992, and has been one of the most trusted passenger planes since then. It can accommodate anywhere from 250 to 440 passengers at a time, and 32 cargo containers, and is typically under the employment of airlines like Turkish Airlines, Air China, China Eastern Airlines, China Southern Airlines, and Cathay Pacific. The planes are powered by either GE or Rolls-Royce engines and are around 212 feet long and have a flying range of about 6,300 nautical miles. And while this plane has been in the air for 3 decades now, it did undergo a nice little overhaul in 2010 when Airbus ordered a new version of their 300 series in the year 2010, upgrading its maximum gross weight by 235 tons and extending the flying range by another 140 miles, and even up the payload. By the end of 2020, there were 742 Airbus A340300s in operation, with another 779 models on order. The list price of one of these big guys is $264 million and is a solid competitor against many of the other popular Boeing models. Number 14. Airbus A340300. The Airbus 340 is a hefty, long-range, wide-body passenger plane with its roots going all the way back to the 1970s. Derived from the Airbus A300, the company began drafting the plans in the late 1980s, and the A340 finally took its first flight in 1991. The 300 variation is 300 feet long and can fit up to 295 passengers with your average 3-class cabin layout, and has a flight range of about 6,700 nautical miles. The aircraft can carry up to 275 tons of cargo and is powered by the 34,000 pounds of thrust CFMI engine. This plane is incredibly reliable and is the preferred aircraft of Lufthansa, which currently have a total of 30 in its German fleet. And after receiving a few well-deserved enhancements and upgrades, South African Airways put in an order for the model in 2003. And Air Mauritius even received some in 2006, and by the year 2018 there were a total of 96 Airbus A340-300s in the sky. Number 13. Airbus A340500. It would seem that the only company Airbus really sees as its biggest competition is itself, because they're constantly outdoing their previous models. The Airbus A340500 has a new take on what became a classic for a time. When it first hit the scene back in 2002, it was the world's longest-range passenger plane, with a maximum range of 9,000 nautical miles, which was pretty substantial. The A340500 was 222 feet long, over 56 feet high, and had a wingspan of about 208 feet. Had a pretty serious maximum seating of 440 passengers at a time, between 3 classes: first, business, and economy. The Airbus A340500 is still in active service to this day, and it was the plane of choice for Singapore Airlines and the Emirates. But the Airbus A340500 also set a record for making the longest commercial passenger flight in the world in 2013, when it flew non-stop from Singapore to Newark, New Jersey. Today, there are only 2 of these impressive aircraft left in service today, both of which are flying with Azerbaijan Airlines. Number 12. Airbus A350-900. Taking their passenger planes to the next level, Airbus debuted the prototype for their A350-900 in 2013, and it truly took off just a year later. The 900 model is a hefty one at 209 feet long with a maximum takeoff weight of 280 tons, and will usually have about 325 passengers on board, ferrying them over a range of 8,100 miles. But because of the extra weight on this Airbus, it's got a much higher engine thrust in order to get the job done. But once the plane actually hit the scene, airliners all over the world placed some pretty substantial orders and were ready to phase out some of their older planes to make way for bigger, better, and faster Airbuses. One of the biggest customers for this plane was the Philippine Airlines, which replaced all of their older A340-300s with this one, which enabled them to offer non-stop flights between Manila and New York City without a payload limitation in either direction. This type of thing hadn't been done much before, so the 900 was definitely a welcome addition to fleets around the world and even helped keep airliner costs down while keeping profits high. Leasing one of these A340-900s came with a hefty price tag though, and in 2014 it cost $1.1 million a month just to lease one out, and they usually require another $18 million in maintenance and operating costs over a 10 to 12-year period. And that doesn't even take into account the typical $12 million it costs airlines to fit them to their liking. Number 11. Boeing 777-200. While passenger plane models like the Airbus may have some solid name recognition, it's really Boeing who has the biggest household name. The Boeing 777-200 is the first model in the series and made its maiden flight in the year 1994, with the first plane being delivered to United Airlines the next year. It comes in at just over 209 feet long with a 200-foot wingspan and about 61 feet high. It's powered by either two Rolls-Royce Trent 800 engines or General Electric 90s that allow it to reach a top speed of just under Mach 1 and have a range of about 4,200 nautical miles. The 200 can hold up to 305 passengers across a three-class configuration, and it was aimed primarily at domestic flights within the United States. But that didn't stop several Asian carriers and British Airways from placing orders. In total, there were about 88 of these Boeing models in the sky across 9 carriers, and it was the direct competitor to the Airbus A340300. As time went on, though, she proved her worth. The 777-200 spread her wings even further, making flights along routes in South America, the Caribbean, Africa, Australia, and even to Gulf destinations. But what really sets this Boeing apart is that it was the first commercial aircraft to be designed entirely by a computer, which was quite a feat for the early 90s. She's got a great low-hanging landing gear and a blade-shaped tail cone with a narrow tail fin that allows her to reach such great heights and speeds while still being so large. But by 2019, Boeing had a new and improved model, and so the company stopped all marketing for the 777-200. Number 10. Airbus A340600. Built with the hopes of taking all the attention away from the earlier generations of the Boeing 747, the Airbus A340600 made her first flight in April of 2001 for Virgin Atlantic. This giant passenger plane is an ultra-long-haul leader with a maximum range of 7,900 nautical miles and is powered by 4 Rolls-Royce Trent 500 engines, which only use 56,000 out of the 60,000 pounds of thrust they all offer, meaning a longer on-wing life. It was a bold choice for Airbus to finally opt for 4 engines instead of the typical large 2, but it allowed for a 13% reduction in the maintenance costs for operators, which made her an incredibly appealing prospect at the time for carriers everywhere. The A340-600 is able to use its max range to the fullest and offers non-stop flights to remote areas around the world that its competitors just couldn't do. We're talking longer flights over the oceans and mountain ranges without needing to stop for fuel, and more direct routes means more cash in the airliner's pockets. The Airbus A340600 is about 247 feet long, making her nearly 40 feet longer than her original predecessor, the 300, and 14 feet longer than her biggest competitor from Boeing. But because she was longer, not only could she fit more passengers and cargo, but she was also much safer because unlike many other planes in the sky at the time, Airbus was able to add an additional 2 emergency exit doors over the wings. The 600 was the longest commercial aircraft in the skies at the time until 2010, when she was dethroned by the Boeing 747-8. And by the year 2018, there were 60 of these A340-600s in service across 6 airlines worldwide. Number 9. Boeing 777-300. The Boeing 777-300 launched at the Paris Air Show in the summer of 1995, and major assembly on the plane officially began in 1997, and it rolled out and made its first flight that same year. The 777-300 took notes from her predecessors, but kicked things up to 11 by being 20% longer, now coming in at 242 feet. She has a carrying capacity of 299 passengers across 4 class sections, a wingspan of 212 feet across and just over 18 feet high. The plane was also equipped with a ground maneuvering camera for taxiing and a tail skid to rotate, and special semi-levered main gear that allowed her to have a maximum takeoff weight of 324 tons. The plane is also built with Rolls-Royce engines in a typical tri-class layout, which was much heavier than her predecessor at 334,000 pounds. Boeing had originally wanted to deliver 170 of their 777-300s and produce about 30 of them by 2002 to replace their earlier 747s because these new models used a third of the fuel and lowered maintenance costs by a whopping 40%. She had an impressive range of over 6,000 nautical miles, which helped her make some pretty substantial non-stop flights at nearly half the cost. Several variations on the 777-300 model were made over the years, but the original remains the architect of the fleet. Number 8. Boeing 747-400. The Boeing 747-400 is the original variant of their 747, with an increased wingspan, winglets, and new and improved engines, and a glass cockpit that got rid of the need for flight engineer. That also featured the stretched upper deck of the 747-300 and became so popular that 442 of them were built. The 747-400 is quite literally a record-breaking plane, being first to fly a distance of 9,700 nautical miles over a 20-hour and 9-minute period in 1989 for Qantas. But the 747-400 has some tremendous staying power, and as of 2014 it was the fastest heavyweight flight between London and Sydney. This passenger plane has a maximum takeoff weight of nearly 900,000 pounds, and at 232 feet long, the 747-400 can accommodate up to 416 passengers in its 3-class setup, 525 in a 2-class setup, and 660 in the all-economy cabin variation. Needless to say, this was a major development feat for Boeing's 747 series. British Airways was one of the main operators of the 400, and the airline broke another record when one of their 747-400s broke the New York to London subsonic speed record in 4 hours and 56 minutes when it rode the jet stream linked to the storm Ciara. It's one thing to make headwinds, but the 747-400 really makes tailwinds. Number 7. Boeing 747-8. The Boeing 747-8 is a great wide-body airliner that first took to the skies in 2010. It's the largest version of the 747 to date, and is a direct competitor to the Airbus A3XX double-decker plane. The 747-8 has stretched its original fuselage out to 250 feet, making it the longest airliner until it was dethroned in 2020 by the 777X. The 747-8 kept its basic structure and sweep, but the wings are thicker and deeper with wider raked wingtips and hold substantially more fuel than the previous 747s. It's also built with a beefier and all-around more efficient engine, the General Electric GE NX turbofan, and it's got a maximum takeoff weight of around 975,000 pounds, making it the heaviest Boeing airliner. This 747-8 became incredibly popular, so much so that 3 variations were created shortly afterward: the freighter version, the Intercontinental, which can carry up to 467 passengers in a 3-class configuration over 7,790 nautical miles, and the Presidential version, which was crafted specially for Air Force One. As of May 2022, the 747-8's Intercontinental variation had 155 firm orders, 48 of which were passenger airliners, and by the end of that same year, production of the 747 is scheduled to come to an end, with the final 747-8 being delivered to Atlas Air. When that happens, it will truly be the end of an era, but will also make way for the next bigger and better aircraft to come from Boeing. Number 6. Antonov AN225 Mriya. The Antonov AN225 Mriya is truly one of the most special aircraft ever built, mostly because there's only one in existence. This plane was a strategic cargo airlift aircraft designed in the 1980s by the Antonov Design Bureau of the Soviet Union. It flew a number of successful military missions before being shelved for the next 8 years. It was eventually refurbished and reintroduced into commercial operations with Antonov Airlines and carried oversized payloads. It was an amazing aircraft and inspired the design for a second similar airframe. However, construction halted after it proved to be too expensive, and interest for something so large began to wane. By 2009, the second aircraft was only 60% complete and simply fell by the wayside. The Antonov AN225 Mriya has a maximum takeoff weight of 750 short tons and holds several aviation records to this day, including being the heaviest aircraft ever built and having the largest wingspan of any aircraft in operational service. Because of its overall oversized look, the Antonov AN225 Mriya garnered a fair amount of public interest and eventually even a global following, and people would come from far and wide to watch it arrive and depart. In an incredibly sad turn of events, however, the Antonov AN225 Mriya was destroyed in 2022 during the Battle of the Antonov Airport in Ukraine, and it's highly unlikely that the world will ever see something like this aircraft again. Number 5. Airbus Maverick. Airbus has brought us plenty of quality aircraft to date, many of which we've all flown in, so it should make sense that they've thrown their name into the hat with their Maverick. short for Airbus Model Aircraft for Validation and Experimentation of Robust Innovative Controls. The Maverick looks like it can cut right through the wind, foregoing turbulence altogether. But the new Airbus's design is pretty tough to miss because the entire aircraft basically looks like one giant wing and a missing fuselage. The Maverick is a pretty big risk for the company because we all know that humans are creatures of habit and hate deviating from many of the designs that we're used to. And if tickets for the Maverick went on sale tomorrow, chances are for every person waiting in line to buy one, 2 more would steer clear. But on the flip side, the blended wing design is meant to cut down drastically on fuel consumption and carbon emissions, which is always a good thing. Instead of resting beneath the wings, the Maverick's 2 engines have been attached right to the rear stabilizer at the top of the aircraft, which will also allow for a smoother airflow over the plane. The Maverick design was revealed in 2020 at the Singapore Air Show, but we'll probably need a lot more time in the lab before we see one of those flying overhead. Number 4. Monster Jumbo. Most of us have been inside a jumbo jet, but one designer has managed to take that concept and turn things up to 11. The concept plane is lovingly referred to as a Monster Jumbo and was created by Phil Pauly, an award-winning software company known for its eccentric and sometimes quirky digital solutions. So it should make sense that their next big thing really is, well, big. Their Monster Jumbo is a dual-winged commercial airliner designed with not 1, not 2, but 4 decks to shove in as many passengers as humanly, or maybe even inhumanly, as possible. Jumbo jets are only getting larger, but the Monster Jumbo really is something else, and it'll be tough to compete with because it's designed to accommodate 1,500 people at a time and is capable of flying halfway around the world without the need to refuel. And if the Monster Jumbo eventually makes it to production, it's going to be the largest plane in the world by a long shot. The thought of sharing an airplane with that many people may sound daunting, but what it really comes down to is its fuel efficiency. If airliners can get this many people on one flight, then it means fewer flights throughout the day, which means less air traffic, fewer chances of collisions and mishaps, and fewer nasty fuel emissions. Number 3. The Spruce Whale. The Spruce Whale is an insane concept plane that looks to replicate the size, scale, and look of a whale and slap some wings on it. This concept comes from the mind of Randy Alendra and certainly offers a unique glimpse into the future of aviation. Alendra has said that their design is so futuristic that the necessary materials to create such a whale of a plane don't even exist yet, and the technology it takes to fly likely won't be a reality for another century. So even if the Spruce Whale does come to fruition, Alendra won't be alive to see it. So how does something like this move about? Well, the Spruce Whale, which looks like a half-dirigible, half-starcraft, will forego a typical fuselage for a mechanism that uses helium to keep it afloat and propelling forward. And even more outlandish is the fact that it will be using its rear-mounted energy converter module to harvest the wind's power, meaning the higher and further it flies, the more output it'll produce. Again, if the Spruce Whale is ever created, it will be long after we're gone, and I'm thankful for that. Number 2. Boeing 777-9. At 250 feet and 9 inches long, the Boeing 777-9 is the world's largest and longest twin-engine commercial aircraft. She made her first flight in 2020 and has a capacity of 425 passengers for those long-haul flights of up to 7,200 nautical miles at a time, which is about a third of the world's circumference. Each 777-9, complete with its retractable wings, is the largest single composite structure in the world and can generate about 105,000 pounds of thrust from their General Electric GE9X engines, which are the most powerful engines to ever be attached to a commercial aircraft. The Boeing 777-9 clearly has a lot going for it, and while this plane certainly has a lot to look forward to in the near future, there have been some slight delays that have kept this behemoth on the shelf. During one of its test flights in 2020, there was an uncommanded pitch event which halted any Federal Aviation Administration certifications. But frequent flyers want to look forward to the 777-9 hitting the skies most likely in 2024. When that happens, she'll be pretty tough to miss up there. Number 1. The Airbus A380-800. The Airbus A380-800 is a wide-body airliner built to challenge the dominant Boeing 747 in both size and long-haul capabilities, and officially became the largest passenger airliner in the world when it entered service in 2007 for Singapore Airlines. The project began back in 1988 and required tens of billions of dollars and plenty of test flights before the A380-800 was ready to go. It has seating for 525 passengers and a maximum certified capacity for a full 853 passengers, and is equipped with either 4-engine Alliance GP7200s or Rolls-Royce Trent 900 engines that give her a max range of 8,000 nautical miles. At 239 feet long, the A380-800 is 40% larger than the world's second largest passenger plane, and by 2020 she has completed nearly 1 million flights over 7.3 million block hours with 0 fatalities or hull losses, making her one of the safest options out there. And as of June 2022, there are 239 aircraft in the service of 16 operators worldwide. She's also equipped with some of the best avionics in the business, the likes of which were first used in military aircraft like the Lockheed Martin F-22 Raptor and the Lightning II, which are some of the most powerful jet fighters in the world. So not only is it the biggest passenger plane, but the Airbus A380-800 really is the best passenger plane in the world, bar none.
Watch our Vehicles playlist for more top 15 videos about amazing vehicles. Sit back, relax, and binge watch all of our best vehicle videos.